Hi, everyone. Welcome again to another podcast and video clip from Teacher Joseph. And today I have with me my dear friend Meysam from Iran. Meysam is an English teacher on italki, and he learned English, which he's going to tell us all about, because today we're going to be looking at tips how you can learn successfully, and Maysam's going to be sharing with us what he did to learn English. So, Maysam, how are you today?
Hi everyone. Hi Joseph. I'm doing very well, thanks. How about you? Are you doing also well?
Very well, thank you. It's been a nice weekend. The weather's been lovely here. I know your weekend is different from ours. You have your weekends on
Yeah.
Thursday and Friday. So how was the weather and what did you do on your weekend?
Yeah, weekend was like pretty much uneventful for me, but I enjoyed my time. I just hanged out with my friend and it was pretty nice. The weather is also nice over here. The city that I live in is generally a cold city, but with the global warming in the recent years and also the spring weather that we're having right now, it's quite nice and sunny today.
You hung out with friends. That's very nice. Yeah, that's lovely. Yeah, it sounds good. It sounds good. I'm sure it's very nice over there all the time. And so tell me, when did you first start learning English then? What was the year? Can you remember when your
The
journey with
year.
English first started? Yeah.
Yeah, I was exposed to the language from a very young age, I can say. So maybe I was younger than 5 years old. So I watched cartoons and I was exposed to English music in particular. And that exposure created a kind of motivation for me to dig into the language and understand it. And I was pretty much obsessed with it till like my teenage years. And the journey, I mean, began learning English seriously when I was a teenager. I mean, the exposure was when I was very young, but the serious studying started when I was a teenager, I can say.
Wow. Okay. So that was in the 90s, was it? Or in the 2000s?
It's early 2000s.
Right. Okay. And would you say that's unique to you? I mean, do you think many Iranians have the opportunity to use media in that way, or did you have like a special TV setup that you could access more cartoons, or is that kind of widely
Yeah,
available
I
for
mean, at
everyone?
that time, I remember we had CDs and all foreign cartoons and films were being sold on CDs, and we had access to them. But most of them were dubbed. People watched them in their Persian dubbed versions.
Yeah.
But I don't know why. Maybe I had access to the original English versions of these cartoons and media. I mean,
Right.
they both options were available, but I mainly watched the English versions.
Yes, and they helped
But
you
of
the
course,
most.
as the internet grew, as the social media grew in these recent
Yes.
years after 2010, opportunities increased in comparison
Right.
to the early 2000s.
Yes. So you would say media is key. That's the one thing that really
Yeah,
helped.
exactly.
Is that right?
It
Yeah.
was the key for my learning.
Wow. Yeah, because some people say, that they like media, but they prefer reading, for example. But I'm always in favor of media because it's kind of like passive learning. You can leave it in the background, whether it's radio or TV. You can always pick up words from the different actions that they're doing as well. I think media is a wonderful thing. So media is up there as one of the key
Yeah,
things.
sure. Especially when someone is a beginner in learning a language like English. And media not only does it help you with the language, it also provides you with motivation, like an introduction to the culture, how people behave, or their general lifestyle in that culture and language. You can get familiar with them using media, which is not so vivid when you were just reading books or I don't know, articles, etc.
Yeah, and did you use subtitles at that point as well, or
Subtitles?
yeah? Did you say you used
Yeah, I
subtitles?
remember when I didn't under when I was a beginner in English, I watched movies with subtitles, but as I grew, I gradually omitted the subtitles and watched them in original audio.
Wow, you're very lucky having such access. I mean, that's back then, the internet wasn't such a big deal, especially where you are. So I suppose um, it's very different now. But well, that's great that media was such a great help. When I was growing up, we didn't have the internet, so it didn't exist. We used something kind of the same. It was like shortwave radio. It was radio where you could
Yeah.
listen to other countries talking in different languages. The same kind of thing, but not
Mm.
quite as eventful or up to date at the time of broadcast.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
also radio connections, I guess at that time were not so stable, or you couldn't hear those radio stations very clearly, I guess, at that time, right?
Well, the
Even on those
actual
short waves.
Yeah, the actual way they broadcasted, the actual way they used to broadcast these stations was they used to wait for the sun being in a particular position, and they would beam the transmission off the sun back to the earth. It really was amazing technology for the time. But you are right, there was always static. If someone was using machinery, the radio could pick that up. It's much better now. You can still use shortwave on the internet. It's a much
Mm, yeah,
more
exactly.
accurate way. Yeah, that's very good. So yeah, that was our way before the internet came. So
Yeah,
what
but our
hinders
generation,
going
I
on?
mean, Gen Zs
Yeah,
across the globe, they've had a lot of opportunities in these areas. I mean, we had the growth of internet. We lived in a digitalized world. We were born in that era, and we grew with the growth of internet.
yeah, it's interesting. I only
So
worked out
I
what
just
Gen
took
Z actually
advantage
meant
of that
recently.
growth.
Yeah, I only worked out what the Gen Z was recently. I was talking about it on a podcast. It's really interesting.
Mm.
Um, yeah, Gen Z. So we would say Generation Z here in the UK. Yeah. So you consider
Yeah,
yourself
that's
a
the
Gen
complete
Z
name.
then? You're a Gen Z.
Yeah, I was born in 2001. So those people who were born in were born after, I guess, 2000s are called Gen Zs, right? Or after 1990s.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose so. I don't know the exact time frame of when it all fits in, but yeah, yeah, something like that. Wow, Gen Z. Hmm. You have a very nice accent there. It sounds
Mhm.
a little bit American, so maybe that's the media you were watching growing up. Would that be
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So American media at that time dominated the whole, I guess, the cartoons and movies. And I guess still it does. So that's where I got that influence of American accent.
It shows
And
how powerful.
for me at that time, American accent was more understandable than British accent. So that's why I adopted that accent. For me personally, it was like that.
Yeah, it really shows how
Easier to
powerful.
understand and comprehend.
Yeah, it shows how powerful the media was in order to give you an accent. You say you adopted it, so did you have to work on adopting that, or did it just naturally develop?
Um, I kind of worked and it kind of naturally came into me. I mean, uh, I heard the media, I heard the way English was spoken, and I somewhat also tried to imitate that accent. So it was both.
Yeah, I always tell my students shadowing is the way forward if you're trying to develop a
Exactly.
particular accent. Absolutely, absolutely. So then, my next question is what hindered you? So we know what helped you, the media, but what held you back? What hindered you? Um, would you
Hinder.
say? Yeah,
Yeah, I
hinder.
can remember this might be interesting, my answer. So
Okay.
the only exposure that I had to academic English and that kind of schoolway English was in school when I entered middle school. And a lot of teachers out there, the methodology they had was not quite natural to the way we naturally learn languages. I mean, they focused more on grammar. They barely spoke original, authentic English in their classes. And I remember they were extremely concerned with grammar and tests and excessive tests. It kind of helped, but I guess something like 60 to 70% of that was a hindrance and a major stress. So maybe academic English that I experienced in school could be easier or it could be more fun.
Right.
In that
Okay.
way, it could be more helpful.
So, what would you recommend for people who are learning today then? You're saying shadow, get, with stuff with an accent that you like. If you're focusing on accents, don't stay too long with the books. Make sure you're hearing.
Mhm.
That, that's what you're saying.
Exactly. And by the way, the teachers that you have, they are very important. I mean, if you're learning with a native speaker, it's going to be way better for your accent than a non-native English speaker. So uh, students tend to copy their teachers who serve somewhat as their role models. So shadowing is definitely very important. And just to hear as much as possible is also going to be very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that 100%. Some students, they listen to a lot of American media because it dominates them, as it does with us. There's no escaping American media. But when it comes to shadowing and listening and learning, yeah, it's very important to narrow down your media, not only to one country, but even to one city. Try to be as local as you can, especially here in the UK, because we have so many different accents. Um, yeah,
And
thank
this
you very,
question you asked about, my recommendation for learners, it
yeah.
basically comes down to their own goals and expectations. I mean, some people might not even think of their accent as being recognized as a non-native English speaker, or I guess a minority of students might have this goal. So for them, we can recommend shadowing. But for other students, what I recommend them is to learn English or learn any language in a natural way, but just focus less on academic stuff and just try to experience the language and the culture. And that should be their main goal. And by adding academic English books, grammar rules, for example, it can serve as a good assisting tool in order to improve their own English. So it shouldn't have to be their main tool, just to focus on academic English.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with you 100%. This is what I always tell my students. It's really deep. I mean, it comes down to identity as well, with who you really want to be in the English world, to find who you are. It's, a chance to escape your current identity and reform yourself as an American or as a British person. That doesn't mean to say that you have to come and live here, but it's all about tribe and who you want to be like and who you want to associate with and the kind of life you want to live as well. So it's not an easy question about identity, and in a second language. When you're a kid, it's easy because you just go with who's around you. But as a learner, when you're an adult, your tribe is very artificial and sometimes non-existent.
Exactly.
It's a very difficult
Yeah,
thing.
but in this process, it's a difficult process. But what I also recommend, besides that methodology, is consistency. So consistency is, I can say, the number one and the most important thing that a learner must consider. So studying languages on and off will, I can say, never help, but studying very small portions of language each day, but for a long time, will definitely be helpful. And this is very important.
So you mean the consistency as in the habit of doing it every day, or do you mean with the same materials as well?
Kind of both. I mean, if you've got a good textbook, a good grammar book that covers the rules very well, so you can consistently study it and review it in different time periods. But also considering the general English learning process, it's somewhat a lifelong process as a non-native speaker. So you constantly need to try to maintain your uh, languages that you've learned as a non-native speaker.
Yeah, and for students who are watching this, I mean, if your teacher hasn't given you a good textbook, or at least recommended one, then ask him or her to either give you a PDF or to recommend a book because they should be aware of what you need. Um, So don't be afraid to
Exactly.
approach your teacher. Yeah, to ask for that. Okay, so one issue which many people struggle with is motivation because, as you know, um, I'm currently learning Farsi. I've already learned Spanish. I know a
Hmm.
bit of Dutch, a tiny little bit of Arabic, and I speak Scottish Gaelic as well. So when it comes to motivation, what keeps you going? And can you remember what it was like for you when you were younger? Because as adults, this is one thing that people really struggle with because they don't often see markers, especially with accent. I'm always telling people to record themselves when they start shadowing and then review it 6 months later because it's hard to hear the change. But what motivated you to keep going? Was there anything burning in the back of your mind that's
But
really
my motivation actually changed in different time periods of my life. So when I was very young, my main motivation was to connect with the media and just try to understand what I'm hearing in those movies or cartoons that I watched. And as I grew older, my motivation was to succeed academically in school. But I can say the biggest, I mean, the game changer happened when I spoke with native English speakers. And that kind of connected me with the original culture and language. And my biggest motivation in this time period and after that time was to connect with foreigners. So I like the sense of connection that I get with people and foreigners. And that motivates me and that energizes me to work on my language daily and to improve it.
wow, that's quite something. And have you ever been outside of Iran? I mean, did you go and live in America or in the UK or anything like
No,
that?
unfortunately, I've never been abroad, but I plan to go someday and
Wow.
visit at least some countries.
Wow, you're kind of like living evidence that it's possible to have a native accent and live outside. It's very
Yeah,
unusual.
probably can say that.
Yeah, yeah. I've met a few Russians who've been able to achieve a perfect English, but not quite like yours. Theirs was more Sherlock Holmes like because he'd read too many Sherlock Holmes novels. It was a little bit
Hmm.
aristocratic and fake. But yours seems to be very natural, which is a wonderful thing, and it should assure people that it's a goal worth aiming for. Um, okay, so are there any particular books, novels, podcasts, things that you could recommend for people who are on the
Yeah,
journey of English?
on this matter, as I believe in consuming authentic material. So we're not, I guess the main focus of one person should not be academic English. The main focus should be uh, reading or exposing yourself to the things you like in the target language. So if you're into movies, I recommend uh, going and watching as many English movies as possible. So, for example, IMDb's top 250 movies is a good list to pursue. You can watch those movies and just try to expose yourself to the language. But regarding academic English, what really helped me was I had a book for improving my listening skill. The author was, I guess, Jack C. Richards, Tactics for Listening. So we did that in school, and it really helped to improve my listening comprehension. And I guess this is like I can see the main book that helped me to improve my English at that time.
The
And
go-to book.
also, I read some grammar books, English Grammar News series.
Oh
Uh,
yes, yes, they're very
they had
famous.
different levels, basic, intermediate, advanced. And I consistently studied those for several years. And I still sometimes go and see and check some points, hints from those books. So it's really comprehensive.
Yeah, in that series of books, there's one now specifically focusing on accent as well. I can't remember what it's called, but it's part of the same series. Um,
Mm.
can I just jump back and ask you about that book you mentioned there, Jack somebody you mentioned?
Jack C. Richards, yeah, that's the author. tactics for listening.
Tactics for
It's
listening.
been written for various levels from A1 to I guess B2.
Wow.
It trains your ear to various spoken forms of the English language, and there are some exercises in the book so that you can practice listening comprehension, which is I guess very important for
Wow.
everyday English.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's a very useful recommendation there. And what podcasts are you listening to these days? I mean, presumably you're still going over material, even though your English sounds perfect now. Are you still reading daily or doing stuff daily to reassure your English or reaffirm it? But
Yeah,
what's your
I
daily?
reinforce and I try to improve my English and maintain it using authentic material these days, mainly. And just occasionally and only sometimes, I go and read some of my grammar books. And I just randomly look up some words in the dictionary. I check up some idioms, phrasal verbs. But the main materials I consume are podcasts in my favorite subjects, such as psychology, business, academic uh, podcasts, etc. Mostly authentic materials.
Yeah, psychology sounds fascinating, very deep. So you must be always learning new words, I suppose, if you're into
Yeah,
psychology.
kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, I know sometimes I listen to those kinds of podcasts, and even for me as a native speaker, I still have to check the words. Some people think because you're a native speaker, you know every single word in existence. And one of the good things about working on italki, as you know yourself, is people challenge you. They ask you things, and you think, let me let me check. And then you
Exactly.
have to go and find the answer. Yeah. Oh, very good, very good. So you're teaching English on Italki as I am, and you
Mhm.
also teach Farsi, the language of Iran. Is that right?
Yeah, my native language.
Wow, great, great. Yeah, very nice, very nice. And so all of this kind of stuff, if people want to book a lesson with you, I'll put your profile in the show notes, uh,
Yeah, sure.
YouTube and in other places, so that they can see you if they want to approach you for any lessons or support. Any other things you would like to recommend to learners? Any final bits of advice or any other things that you would like to tell people who are maybe struggling to get to that next level?
Yeah, I would again advise learners to find their motivations first and try to find something that really motivates them and energizes them. And based on that motivation, they should create a goal and form a daily habit. And this process will naturally lead to excellence in their target language. I mean, this has worked for me in these years, at least.
Wow, that's really good advice. Yeah, that's really good advice. When you get older, you become a bit old and cynical. For me, what I found as well is, and I'm always telling this to students, is just to make sure that they remember to stay open. What part of my daily practice is just to take 5 minutes to say, okay, I'm going to be open now to hearing what people have to say, to hearing what I have to learn as well. Because if you don't do that, there's a danger that you become quite closed and hard to hearing people's words, what they're really saying behind the words, where they're trying to go. So, yeah. Oh, very
Exactly.
nice, very nice. Well, thank you so
And
much.
there's a Chinese proverb, I guess it says that the best time to plant a tree was 50 years ago, and the next best time is right now. So
Wow,
one should
that's very
start doing and accomplishing his goals, his or her goals from now on.
interesting. Oh, all right. I'm not sure if there's an English proverb that goes along with that. Probably just the usual one, which we hear all the time, and that is the best time to do something is now, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Meysam, for being with us today. It's
you're
been lovely to
welcome.
have you here.
Thanks for having me. It was an honor to be here.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much. And as we say here in the UK, don't be a stranger. That means feel free to come back again and tell us
Yeah,
what you're up
sure.
to
I'll
if
be
you
more than happy.
wonderful. All right then. Well, thank you. And thanks to all of you for watching with us. And I'll be back again soon with another podcast. See you all. Bye.
Bye.